What if I told you that something you do in your own kitchen, maybe 2 or 3 times a week, something you do specifically because you are trying to be responsible, trying not to waste food, trying to save a little money, is quietly creating the perfect chemical conditions for one of the most aggressive cancers in modern medicine? Not over weeks, not over months, over years and decades of quiet, repeated exposure your body has no real defense against. And the most disturbing part of this is that almost no one has ever told you which foods are doing it. I'm Dr. Samuel Hart. I've spent more than 20 years in internal medicine, and a significant portion of my work has been with adults over the age of 60. And one of the hardest moments in my entire career is the conversation I have to have with a patient when their scan comes back and we both already know what it shows. I have sat across from too many of those patients who looked at me and said, "But I lived a clean life. I cooked at home. I made my own food." And I have walked out of those rooms wishing somebody had told them sooner, in plain language, what was happening every time they reheated leftovers for tomorrow's lunch. That is what we are going to fix today. In the next 20 minutes, I'm going to walk you through 8 specific foods that the latest food chemistry research tells us should never be reheated, especially not in a microwave, especially not at high heat. For each one, I will tell you what is actually happening at the chemical level when you press that button, what that change has been linked to in published cancer research, and one small, simple change you can make tonight to take that risk off the table for good. Stay with me to the end because the 8th food is one nobody is talking about, and it is sitting in almost every refrigerator in this country right now. Before we get into the list, I need you to understand one thing. Cooking food the first time is, in most cases, a chemically reasonable event. Heat changes proteins, breaks down fibers, kills bacteria. The compounds produced during that first cooking pass are usually present at levels your body can handle and clear out. Reheating is a different story. The second time heat touches certain foods, 3 things happen at once. The natural antioxidants in the food that would have neutralized harmful compounds during first cooking are mostly gone. The chemical reactions that produce small amounts of carcinogenic compounds during first cooking accelerate, but now without those antioxidant breaks. And whatever bacteria, oxidation, or chemical conversion happened in the refrigerator while the food was sitting there overnight gets driven forward by the new heat. The compounds we worry about the most from a cancer research perspective have long names: nitrosamines, heterocyclic amines, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, oxysterols, advanced glycation end products. The World Health Organization's cancer research arm has classified members of several of these families as probable human carcinogens. The link to pancreatic, colorectal, and gastric cancers is documented in the peer-reviewed literature. This is not fear-mongering, this is biochemistry. Let me tell you about a patient I'll call Beatrice. Beatrice was 72, a widow, raised 4 children, ran her own household for 50 years. She was the kind of cook who never let a leftover go to waste. Every Sunday she made a big batch of food and lived off it through Wednesday. She did this her entire adult life. By the time she came to see me, she had stage 3 gastric cancer. After her diagnosis, she sat across from me and said, "Doctor, I never smoked, I never drank, I cooked everything from scratch. How did this happen?" I want to come back to Beatrice later because the answer to her question is the reason this video exists. Here we go. Food number 1, processed meats. Bacon, ham, sausages, hot dogs, deli slices, smoked turkey. This is the one most people think they understand, and they do not. Processed meats are already in a chemically loaded state the day you buy them. The nitrites added to them as preservatives react with the amino acids in the meat protein during manufacturing and produce a class of compounds called nitrosamines. By the time that hot dog or that pack of sliced ham reaches your kitchen, it already contains a measurable amount of those compounds. Cooking them once accelerates the reaction. Reheating them, especially in a microwave on high, drives the reaction even further. Each pass of heat increases the nitrosamine concentration in the meat. The World Health Organization's International Agency for Research on Cancer has classified processed meats as a Group 1 carcinogen, meaning there is sufficient evidence that consumption is linked to colorectal cancer in humans. Research has also identified dietary nitrosamines as a contributing pathway in pancreatic cancer development. The habit. If you are going to eat processed meats, and I am not telling you to never eat them, prepare them once, eat them once. Do not save them for tomorrow's microwave. If you must reheat, use low heat in a covered pan with a little water, not high heat in a microwave. Food number 2, cooked leafy greens, spinach, kale, Swiss chard, beet greens, collards. This one almost always surprises people because the reason they reach for these vegetables in the first place is that someone told them they were healthy, and that is true. Fresh, properly handled leafy greens are one of the most nutrient-dense food groups available to us. The problem is what happens to them after the first cooking. Leafy greens are naturally high in nitrates. In fresh form, those nitrates are largely beneficial, especially for blood pressure and circulation. Once you cook those greens and let them sit, even in a sealed container in the refrigerator, bacterial activity and enzymatic reactions inside the food begin converting those nitrates into nitrites. The longer the cooked greens sit, the more nitrite they contain. Reheat that food, and two things happen simultaneously. The heat drives further nitrite formation and forces a chemical reaction. The product of that reaction is the same family of compounds we just talked about, nitrosamines. I tell my patients to think of it this way. You picked up the vegetable specifically because you were trying to do something good for your body. Then you accidentally turned it into the very compound you were trying to avoid. The habit. Cook leafy greens fresh in the portion you will actually eat. If you find yourself with leftovers, eat them cold the next day, mixed into a salad or alongside a cold plate. Cold storage does not drive the nitrosamine reaction. Heat does. Food number 3, rice. Rice is on this list for a different reason than the others, and it is one of the most quietly important entries. The risk with reheated rice is not primarily a heat-driven chemical reaction. It is a bacterial one, and the toxin involved survives the reheating you do to feel safe. Here is what happens. The grains of uncooked rice often carry the dormant spores of a bacterium called Bacillus cereus. Those spores survive the boiling process. They are designed to. Once your cooked rice is sitting on the counter cooling down, those spores wake up and begin multiplying inside the warm grain. They produce two kinds of toxins. One causes vomiting, the other causes diarrhea. And here is what most people do not know. When you reheat the rice in the microwave the next day, you kill the bacteria, but the toxins they have already produced are heat stable. They survive full reheating. They make it into your body intact. In the short term, those toxins make people sick for a day or two and they recover. In the long term, repeated low-level exposure to these toxins contributes to chronic intestinal inflammation. And chronic intestinal inflammation is one of the most replicated risk factors for gastrointestinal cancers in the cancer epidemiology literature. The habit. After you cook rice, get it into the refrigerator within an hour. Do not leave it on the counter all afternoon. Eat the leftovers within 24 hours. Reheat once only, all the way through to steaming hot, and never reheat the same batch a second time. And if you are someone who batch cooks rice for the week, scale that habit down. The convenience is not worth the long-term cost. Food number 4, cooking oils and any food fried in them. Most people have a vague sense that reused oil is a bad idea. Very few people understand the specific chemistry of why and how that chemistry connects to cancer risk. When you heat any cooking oil, especially a polyunsaturated oil like soybean, corn, sunflower, or canola, a process called lipid peroxidation begins. The unstable double bonds in those fats react with oxygen and heat to produce a cascade of harmful compounds, aldehydes, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. In the presence of starchy foods, acrylamide, these compounds are genotoxic, which means they damage DNA directly. Each time the same oil is heated again, the damage compounds. The breakdown point of the oil drops. The concentration of the toxic byproducts climbs. When you reheat food that was originally fried, particularly in a microwave, the surface of the food scorches unevenly. Parts of it hit very high temperatures, while other parts barely warm. The scorched spots produce the highest concentrations of all 3 classes of compounds we just named. You may not see visible burning. Most of it happens at a microscopic level. The International Agency for Research on Cancer has classified acrylamide and several polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons as probable human carcinogens. The habit. Fried food should be eaten once, fresh, and not saved for reheating. Never reuse frying oil. And if you must reheat fried food, do it in a low oven, not a microwave, so the warming is even and the surface does not scorch. I want to pause here for a moment and ask you something honestly. We are halfway through the list. Has anything we have covered so far been a regular habit in your kitchen? Processed meat reheated for breakfast? Leftover spinach in tonight's dinner? Rice from 3 nights ago? Be honest with yourself and leave a one-word comment below. Tell me which one. I read every single comment on this channel, and the patterns I see in those answers shape every video I make after this one. And if this video is giving you something useful, please tap the like button. That single tap pushes it to the next person who needs to hear it. Now let's continue. Food number 5, chicken, and especially chicken breast. Chicken is one of the most commonly reheated proteins in the American kitchen, and almost no one realizes it carries a specific risk that other meats do not. Chicken is unusually high in dense protein. When you cook it the first time, that protein is heated to a stable structure. When you cool it down and reheat it, especially in a microwave, the protein structure changes again. Two things happen during that second pass. First, the proteins denature unevenly, which is part of why microwave chicken so often tastes rubbery. Second, and more importantly, the high-protein, low-moisture environment of reheated chicken is one of the most favorable conditions in your kitchen for the formation of heterocyclic amines. Heterocyclic amines have been studied extensively in cancer research. The National Cancer Institute has identified them as compounds that have caused cancer in laboratory animals and have been associated with increased cancer risk in human populations consuming high-temperature cooked meats, particularly colorectal and pancreatic cancers. Add to that the bacterial risk. Chicken that is cooled improperly is one of the most common sources of foodborne illness in this country. And reheating does not always reach a temperature throughout the meat sufficient to kill what has grown there overnight. The habit: cook the amount of chicken you will eat at that meal. If you do have leftovers, eat them cold the next day, sliced into a salad or sandwich. If you absolutely must reheat, do it slowly in a covered pan with a little broth or water, not in a microwave on high. Food number 6, eggs that have already been cooked. This one catches almost every patient I tell it to off guard. Eggs are one of the most reheated protein sources in the home kitchen. The leftover hard-boiled eggs from the weekend, the scrambled eggs warmed up in the microwave the next morning, the frittata reheated for lunch. Most people have never been told there is a specific concern with doing this. Eggs are exceptionally rich in cholesterol. Cholesterol on its own is a vital substance in the human body. The problem arises when cholesterol is subjected to heat, oxygen, and time, all three of which happen when you cook an egg, refrigerate it overnight, and then reheat it. Under those conditions, cholesterol oxidizes and forms a class of compounds called oxysterols. Oxysterols have been studied extensively in cardiovascular research, but more recent work has linked elevated oxysterol exposure to changes in cell signaling that promote inflammation in the colon and contribute to the development of colorectal polyps and, over long-term exposure, colorectal cancer. That promote inflammation in the colon and contribute to the development of colorectal polyps and, over long-term exposure, colorectal cancer. The pattern is not seen with fresh cooked eggs eaten once. It is associated with repeated reheating. The habit: cook only the eggs you plan to eat at that meal. If you have a hard-boiled egg in the refrigerator, peel it and eat it cold. Do not put cooked eggs back through a second heating cycle. Food number 7, potatoes. Potatoes carry a double risk when reheated, and both of them are worth understanding. The first risk is bacterial. Cook potatoes left at room temperature for a few hours, especially if they were wrapped in foil to keep them warm at the dinner table, are one of the most favorable environments in the kitchen for a bacterium called Clostridium botulinum. The same bacterium that produces botulism toxin. The toxin it produces is heat resistant. Reheating the potato does not destroy it. Cases of botulism traced back to baked potatoes left wrapped in foil overnight are documented. The second risk is chemical. When starchy foods like potatoes are reheated at high temperatures, particularly fried or roasted again, they form acrylamide. Acrylamide is classified by the World Health Organization as a probable human carcinogen. Chronic dietary exposure has been studied in connection with several cancers, including kidney, endometrial, and ovarian. The habit: cool cooked potatoes quickly, within an hour, and refrigerate them. Do not leave them sitting at room temperature wrapped in foil. If you do reheat, do it gently in an oven or a covered pan, not at high heat. And consider eating cold potato dishes the next day. Cold cooked potatoes also have the side benefit of producing resistant starch, which is excellent for your gut. Food number 8, mushrooms. And here is the one that almost no one mentions. The food that sits in millions of refrigerators right now and gets dropped back into pasta. Mushrooms are nutritionally unique. They are high in a specific kind of protein, and that protein is structurally fragile. Cooked mushrooms, once they have cooled, are an ideal medium for the breakdown of those proteins. Bacterial activity accelerates that process. By the next day, the protein chemistry of the mushroom is significantly different from what it was the moment it came off the heat. When you reheat that mushroom dish, several things happen. Toxins produced by bacterial breakdown of the proteins, which are not always destroyed by reheating, end up in your meal. Some of those breakdown products are mild gastrointestinal irritants. Repeated exposure is one more contribution to the kind of chronic gut inflammation that we have already discussed as a precursor to gastrointestinal cancer. There is also evidence that reheated mushroom dishes show meaningful concentrations of formaldehyde-related compounds. For decades, food safety guidelines in several European countries have specifically recommended against reheating cooked mushroom dishes for these reasons. In the United States, this guidance is far less well known. The habit: cook the amount of mushrooms you will eat that evening. If you do have leftover mushroom dishes, eat them cold the next day, not reheated. And if reheating is unavoidable, get the dish all the way to a consistent piping hot temperature throughout. Do it once only, and do not save it for a second reheat after that. Let me come back to Beatrice. After her diagnosis, when we sat together and went through her food habits, what we found was not surprising. The Sunday batch cook, the rice that sat on the counter cooling, the roasted vegetables reheated 3 days in a row, the deli ham warmed in the microwave for breakfast, the leftover mushroom soup reheated for Tuesday's lunch. None of it was reckless. None of it was unusual. It was simply what a careful, frugal, hardworking woman had been taught to do her entire life. The food was not the only factor in her cancer. Nothing ever is. But it was a factor, and it was one that nobody had ever helped her see. She asked me one question at the end of our conversation that I have never forgotten. She said, "If somebody had just told me, would I have done it differently?" I told her yes. Most people would. Most people are not stubborn. They are uninformed. And the kitchen is one of the last places in our lives where the dangers are still mostly invisible. You now have what Beatrice did not. Let me bring this all together. 8 foods that should not be reheated, especially not at high heat, and especially not in a microwave. Processed meats, cooked leafy greens, rice, cooking oils, and anything fried in them. Chicken, cooked eggs, cooked potatoes left at room temperature, and mushrooms. Each one has its own chemistry, each one has its own mechanism, but the unifying principle is simple. The second time heat touches a food, the chemistry of that food changes in ways that are almost always less safe than the first time. The compounds produced are real. The cancer research linking them to elevated risk is real. And the changes required to take that risk off your table are small enough that anyone watching this video can begin them tonight. Here is the simple summary I want you to walk away with. Cook fresh. Cook the portion you will eat. If there are leftovers, eat them cold the next day whenever possible. If you must reheat, do it slowly, evenly, and once only, not at high heat in a microwave. Cool cooked foods quickly. Do not let things sit on the counter for hours. Get them into the refrigerator within an hour. That is the practical truth of cancer prevention from a kitchen chemistry perspective. None of it requires special equipment. None of it requires expensive ingredients. It just requires a small shift in how you think about leftovers. Now tell me something in the comments. Which of these 8 foods surprised you the most? Which one have you been reheating the most often without thinking about it? Your answer matters more than you know. The patterns in those answers tell me exactly where the biggest information gap is, and it shapes every conversation I have on this channel from here forward. If this video gave you something that will change how you cook this week, share it with someone you love. The neighbor who reheats their leftover sausage every morning. The sister who cooks rice in big batches on Sunday. The friend whose lunch is always last night's dinner. That share may be the most useful thing you do for their health this entire year. Subscribe to this channel for more honest conversations about what science actually says about the food choices that matter most after the age of 60. Next time, I'm going to walk you through 5 breakfast foods that are quietly raising blood sugar in people over 60, even though every label in the grocery store calls them healthy. One last thing. Everything I shared with you today is based on published food chemistry, food safety guidelines, and the documented work of international cancer research organizations. This is educational information. It is not personal medical advice for your specific situation. If you have a personal or family history of cancer, talk to your own physician about your diet. They know you. Bring this video to that conversation. I'm Dr. Samuel Hart. Protect your health with the information your kitchen never came with. I will see you in the next one.